So I want to talk about WWE NXT, the November 12th, 2024 edition. Now, we start off with Meta Girls versus Vakur and Julia. Now, I'm going to tell you right up the bat, I'm going to have background noise. I'm sorry. But anyway, we had the Meta Girls versus Vakur and Julia. And let me tell you something. I did really enjoy this match. I really did. But as I was watching the match, I'm like, are we going to keep Vakur and Julia as a tag team? Like, is that what's going to happen? Because I remember that Vakur got the pin on Roxy, right? But I'm like, let's see what happens. Now, the match itself did what it had to do. The Meta Girls put over Vakur and Julia, and you could tell they've been putting in the work. Like, I feel like we've been seeing Lash Legend be showcased more and more, but we can't sleep on Miss Jackson either. Like, she's clearly put in the work as well. You know, I just feel like because Legend is so big, like, she's so intimidating. You know, she's a tall girl, she's a powerhouse, while you have Jackson, who's like the complete opposite of her. She's tiny, she's petite and all, and so you clearly see Legend first. But, you know, Jackson is doing her hardest to, you know, trying to kind of get out of that shadow. And in this match, I saw it. I did see it. But like I said, you know, Vakur and Julia won. Now, after the match, they had an interview. And it was about the Iron Survivor. And they were like, oh, you guys seem to get along so well. What's going to happen if you two actually qualify for that? And Julia, you know, she gave her answer. But I like Vakur's answer better. She said, see you at deadline. Without hesitation. And then they shook hands. And so I guess we're not keeping them as a team. But it did what it had to do. This match did what it had to do. After this, we had an Iron Survivor qualifier, which was Sol Ruca versus Cora Jade. Let me tell you something. I like NXT. This is no shade. But this match was super short. And I feel like we kind of disrespected Cora Jade in here. We really did. Because she just came back. We saw her in the PLE, and she was very impressive. She hasn't missed a beat. And I understand that Cora is Roxy's best friend, but we couldn't make this competitive. Like, we really couldn't make this match competitive at all whatsoever. Like, for a little minute, they were going back and forth, and then Sol got, like, the advantage, and I don't know where it came the Snow Snatcher, you know, her finishing move, which I think it would be like the RKO. It could come out of nowhere. And she got the 1, 2, 3. Do I mind the Sol one? Of course I don't mind. I think Sol Ruca is amazing. But could we have had a competitive match? Yes. I felt like this show was very rushed. We had a million segments. We'll get into it. Regardless, Sol Ruca won. And she's going to be in the Women's Iron Survivor match. I just was like, why couldn't we have done this in a better way? You know, but it is what it is. And then we had, I told you, backstage segments. We had Carmen with Lennox, and then, you know, Reese came up, and Ashanti came up. I feel like there's gonna be like a love triangle in this story, because Carmen clearly likes Ashanti, right? But I feel like she's been complaining to Lennox about it more. And I think eventually she might lean on him more, because later on we had another segment, and Lennox was talking to Ashanti, and Ashanti was like, oh, you didn't tell her, right, about the girls, and he's over here having all these side chicks. I know, I'm a little bit too invested in this drama, right? But at the end of the day, that's what they're showing us all the time, right? It's a story. I don't know where we're gonna go with this, but we're giving everybody time, so why not let them practice their acting skills. And then we had Wesley versus Cedric Alexander. That was going to be the match next. But before we had that, we had another segment. Before we had that match, we had another segment. And it was Ava talking to the whole NXT tag team division, the male division. Trying to kind of motivate them. How do I feel about this segment? I'm going to tell you right now. I don't understand why the boss needs to motivate you. You know, in wrestling. Because in my honest opinion, these tag teams, the only motivation they should want is getting a shot at those titles. Why Ava gotta make a whole speech and say, you gotta show me. You gotta, you know, show me what you have. You know, we gotta light a fire under you. We literally could have cut this segment and then the whole thing with the tag team division, and it would have been the same. it wasn't needed. We could have cut this segment and given more time to the matches. That's my opinion. Anyway, we went to Wesley versus Cedric Alexander, right? And this was, this was a good match. Cedric lost the match, but, they were trying to keep him strong. And I like the high flying move. Like, we got a lot in this match, even though, again, it was a short match. But we got a lot of back and forth here. But in the end, Wesley won. Now, I do want to say this. In this match, towards the ending, the middle turnbuckle fell down. And for some reason, the referee felt like it was his job to put it back. And so Cedric had this one, but the referee was over here messing with this turnbuckle. I don't know why. I feel like we've done this in wrestling where the turnbuckle comes off and the referee just pushes it out of the way. Right? And then all of a sudden, of course, Cedric falls into the turnbuckle and Wesley takes advantage, and then you got your 1, 2, 3. I just felt like, why couldn't we just have Wesley win clean? But, at the same time, I do like Cedric Alexander. And I do want him to be built strong, Hopefully, he has a good run in NXT. Much better than he did in the main roster. Because he is super talented. But then after this, we had Shawn Spears. And he was at the Don's restaurant, right? Because I have to tell you, the Don has been ignoring him and Brooks for the past 2 weeks. And Shawn said, I let it slide. He said, I let it slide for the past 2 weeks. And he was like, I see people come to your restaurant, be disrespectful, destroy your stuff, all of this. I'm not going to do that. I'm here because I want what you have, which is the North American Championship. And he said, I don't want it for me, though. I want it for Brooks. And Don is like, so you're just using people to get titles? And he's like, and he said, fine, if that's what you want, right? And so that's how we ended. And then Shawn Spears left the restaurant and he told Brooks, that's how you handle a boss. And I said, all right, Shawn, you're trying to teach Brooks, how to be a little bit tougher, even though he's a little cuckoo. But I said, okay. I said, not a bad thing. We already know Shawn Spears is looking for those people who are violent. And he's leaning into it. And so then we had a Kelani interview about her rematch. Same thing. Oh, I'm going to win. It doesn't matter, the numbers game. All the things that baby faces say. Even though you know that the numbers game matter. And mind you, Fatal Influence came. Over and they told Kelani, you're not going to win. It was JC Jane and Nyx that came over. Fallon had to get ready for the match. And so, like I said, we know the outcome. We kind of knew what was going to happen. I predicted that Fallon was going to win because I'm like, how can you take away the title? She's got it. And so then after this, Trick Williams came out, right? He came out to call out Ridge Holland because, Ridge has been terrible, and he pinned him last week. But unexpectedly, who else came out? Andrew Chase from Chase University, and he was telling Trick, hey, I know you have your issues with Ridge, but I want him. I get first licks because he tried to destroy what I love the most, which is Chase U. And so of course Ridge came out here and he wasn't happy because Trick said, you know what, Chase, you're right. Maybe I should give you a chance at my title. And that's why Ridge came out, because he was pissed. He's like, why are you giving away title shots? I beat you. I'm the next in line, right? But then things got really interesting because Chase put down the gauntlet. He said, you know what? I want a match with you. I want a rematch with you. And he put up Chase U. He said, if I don't win, Chase U is dismantled, and then Ridge will get his match with Trick Williams for the title. Or if Chase U wins, Andrew Chase gets that match. And Chase U gets to stay. And so, of course, Andrew Chase, he was like, fine. And then Ridge said, fine. So we're having a number one contenders match next week to see who's going to face Trick. But we did it with a little bit more on the line. Because Chase U is everything to Andrew Chase. And to cut off Thea, Riley, and do cuts in, I think that would really hurt him. Now, I'm going to finish here. This is part 1 to NXT. I'm going to do part 2 next.